finds you well wherever you are. Welcome to Winnie the Music Educator, and today I'm going to be talking about music and family. I would like to start by saying that music is one of those special gifts. It can be passed down from generation to generation. But at the same time, you can also acquire the skill of music through being in the right environment and proper training. And then eventually, it can also still become a gift that is passed down. Human beings, the way our Creator created us, music is almost like part of our gene factor. But in some families, it is obvious, and in some, it's not. And that is why training is also part of bringing out that skill. In my case, if I backtrack events, I can actually trace the music seed all the way from my great-grandparents, then passed down to my late dad, who was a very good guitar player, and he was orphaned at an early age, so he had to play the guitar as an entertainer to raise funds for his schooling. Then I also remember my late maternal grandmother, who was very good in singing, and then I've got also older aunties who still sing in the choir until this day. So music was actually a seed that has been in both my paternal and maternal backgrounds, and I have lots of relatives who engage in it as an activity and also as a skill that they earn a living from. My youngest brother is a sight reader just like me, and he plays classical music largely, and he's also a music educator. Because he's my baby brother, he hung around me quite a bit, and that's when I started realizing that he has a gift in music, and I also, helped train him a little bit, but most of it he did it by himself. I also have a cousin in the UK who's making a mark for himself as a songwriter and keyboardist and a producer, and he's doing very well for himself because recently he started a studio and he actually wrote his first song that is having very good reviews. I have nieces who love to sing. They also play instruments like the violin and guitar, and every other time they try their hand at different instruments, and they usually fellowship together as a family, including their parents. Coming closer home, I met my husband in the music room while on campus, and I remember this particular day I was practicing for a recital, and he walked in on me, and that's where we first got acquainted. Later on, only to realize that he was actually not a music student. He learned to play the piano mostly by ear, also through cassettes that were bought for him and his siblings by their parents, the Christian cassettes those days. And he also had a couple of older friends who were keyboardists in the church, and he learned how to play from them through apprenticeship, and slowly he was able to acquire the skill, masterfully, and he plays jazz music very, very well. So once we established a friendship with my then boyfriend, we quickly became a duo. I on vocals and him on the keyboard, and we learned a lot of jazz standards and R&B music. For those days we were still young. Then we'd go and look for gigs to perform in hotels and restaurants, and even at weddings. And this was one good way that we were able to earn a living, so that we can sustain ourselves at campus, and eventually part of the proceeds that came from these gigs is what we were able to establish our dream school later. Because I remember at one time we had a conversation about what we want to become. I did share with him my dream to start a revolutionary music school to train people on vocals and instruments, so that people can be skilled with a proper education, and that is when now that whole journey of starting a music school began. So we started looking for a premise to start teaching people, and that is when Winton House of Music was born. And I remember when we thought about the name that we were going to call our school, we realized that both our names, when combined, brought memories of a jazz trumpeter whom my husband really loved listening to, and he was one of those jazz musicians that he highly respects. And that's when now Winnie plus Tony came up with Winton House of Music, and then the rest, as I say, is history. I must say that even before we got married, my fiance and I were pretty focused individuals, and together we made a good team. He is very business oriented, and I remember he's the one who really brought structure in what we do as music educators and as business people. So we made sure that we lived lives that were very simple, and the money that we made from doing gigs or teaching, we pulled those resources together so that now we can establish a proper music school, and bought the right and necessary resources, including instruments. This was no mean feat, because anyone who has engaged in music knows that music instruments can be quite costly, but they have a value that goes beyond generations. So we had to really pull our resources and cut down on our expenditure so that we can be able to have a school that is equipped. And part of this being equipped was actually training young people who are skilled to become teachers, who eventually started by teaching in our school before some of them also went to start probably their own schools or went their independent ways. But this is one of the things that we are keen in doing, training young people who are skilled to be able to pass on their skills to other people. This is the one way you also find that now the music skill is not only going to stay in a family, but anyone can partake of it and grow it. So years later, after we got married, my husband and I were very clear from the onset that we would love our children, if God blesses us with them, to learn how to sing and play musical instruments. And I was particularly very excited about the prospect of teaching my own children how to sing and play instruments. And God has been so good, because we are blessed with 2 children, and they both play multiple instruments. My daughter plays the violin, the piano, guitar, drums, recorder. She also sings, and in fact even recently she has already started hinting that she wants to learn another instrument. She wants to do the cello. So the sky is the limit. And my son also learns how to play the violin, the piano, drums and guitar, and he's also interested in starting the clarinet very soon. And one of the things that their dad and I would love to see is that, apart from them just doing the international music exams, which are so good for them in developing their technical skill and really giving them that discipline to refine their art in music, then we'd also like for them to participate in as many competitions as possible, both nationally and internationally. And here already in the country, they participate at the Kenya Music Festivals and young musicians, to name a few. The amazing thing also about our families, both mine and my husband's, is that he's got 2 siblings who are really interested in music, and in fact also earn a living through teaching music and play several instruments. And this is so interesting, because you realize how seeds can be planted, starting even from the eldest child and being passed down to other siblings. And they too have been part of Winton House of Music at some point before they veered on as individuals to work for other institutions. And this is something that's amazing, because then obviously what music has done for us as a family is to empower us socially and economically, because several of us actually earn a living, by just involving ourselves in music activities like performance and teaching. And one of the things I'd like to add on to this, and just to be grateful about, is that, were it not for my auntie who decided to just plant that little seed by, bringing in Christian kids cassettes and the keyboard, the first keyboard I ever saw, for us as gifts. Who knows, we might never have discovered that this is a gift that was actually in the family. And even just to also just acknowledge the churches, because like my husband learned how to play when he was a young man in the church, and by copying others. So these environments all contributed to our acquiring this skill in a way that we decided to take it seriously. And then also, besides that, we decided to have an education in this gifting, so that as a skill we don't just have it as a gift, but also develop it further by acquiring the technical know-how. And this is important, and that's why we're saying it's not just enough to have a gift. You can have a gift, but really it plays a very small percentage in what that it's going to do for you later on in life. So the biggest investment is how you expose yourself in the right environment, and then you have an education in it. Study, go to school, have somebody else who's better just giving you a bit of knowledge so that you can improve technically.